good progress on the Mustang Road Racer. Our first attempt at fiberglass went surprisingly well. I've got one more show to finish it up and start the engine before we blow it apart for paint. Hard to do with all the distractions around here during the day. Everybody went to the hizzle, as Brent puts it, so I'm going nocturnal. No fiberglass fumes, no phone calls, no paperwork, just some small challenges that take time to conquer, and a fresh pot of coffee. Here's my list. The wiring system is still in a box. I found a slight problem with the steering. The whole exhaust needs to come out and get welded up. And I'm not firing this thing up without working brakes. But first, the fuel system. This entire fuel system uses Dash 8 size AN fittings from the fuel cell to the engine and back. I've never had that happen before. Usually there's several step ups and step downs that you got to figure out, trips to the parts store. It can be a real pain. How did this happen? It was pure luck. And at this point, I'll take it. The simplest way to regulate fuel pressure on this EFI is use the inlet on one rail, go down, loop to the second. When it comes out, go into this bypass regulator and back to the tank. I made a bracket mounting it to the engine plate, keeping it right up front for easy access. Another fabbed up bracket is for the throttle. Well, actually two. This one's for the linkage, the other one's for the cable. Nothing fancy. This cable's got nowhere to go yet, because the firewall gets built after the engine comes out. The radiator bracket was tacked in for fitting. I widened them out a little bit more to make room for the rubber insulators to limit vibrations. I keep some universal radiator hoses from Earl's, different lengths and bends, because you never know. Summit sells these clockable thermostat housings from Performance Stainless. The thing that's really neat about them is all you have to do is tighten up the ring once you find your position, and it locks it down. Now, we're not going to use this water pump bypass, so you're probably wondering how a spoon is going to help us. No one I know keeps stainless steel stock, but we all eat, and one spoon won't be missed. I probably could have ordered a plug for this, but I didn't think of it. A TIG with some stainless steel wire works best, but I've done it with an arc welder before. It's just not that pretty. Now, if you don't have a TIG welder, you could always take your base, put it in an oven, let it sit at 400 degrees for a couple minutes, then take a cold plug, drop it in, and when the base cools down to room temperature, it'll contract around that plug, sealing it, no leak. Another hose back to the radiator, and the cooling is done. The electrics are next, starting with the battery box. The ones you buy just won't work for this project. And since I have the time, I'm making my own. Optima batteries are gel filled, so they can be mounted at whatever angle you want. This fuel management system from Big Stuff 3 is programmable for every cylinder, and it'll eventually be mounted on the firewall along with the MSD box. I don't like coils in the car or anywhere near the heat from the headers. Up here on the radiator bracket will allow it to get some air. This is why I like working at night. I can take my time and look at all the options, get a little creative with the fabrication, then take pride in my genius. Now, if you're going to work overnight, there's a few opportunities you don't get during the day. But plan ahead, because you could need a few essentials. I don't know what this guy does, and his explanation is jumbled double talk, much like his taste in art. I'm seeing regurgitated crayons. He lives in here, among other things. Even here, you still have to practice your creativity. I've got some caffeine and something to look forward to in the morning, but it's time to get back to work. This wiring harness controls the engine alone. Remember, we're going to make this thing street legal. We're going to put that wiring harness in when it gets reassembled. Big Stuff 3 customizes specifically for our 408, so there are no surprises. Even for a test fire, the O2 sensor still needs to send information. Short of the main battery leads and wiring up the ignition, we're almost ready to start. Now, like I said earlier, I'd learned never to fire up a new project without working brakes. Cars have gotten away from over-anxious builders before. No positive endings there. Yeah, I could have pulled the drive shaft, but I need to know if all these parts are going to get along with each other. If you get your brake line in bulk like I do a lot of times, when you're using it, always has a little radius in it. Easy way to get that out: cut your piece, put it on a smooth surface, get a piece of wood, roll it out. Flattens it out real good, and it's just like making biscuits. Short of a couple of pulleys and getting this thing on the ground, I'm ready for Brent to get here and share in what's going to be the glory of the engine. I'm going to miss being left alone, but the rooster's crowing and I need a break, so I'll see you in a little bit. Well, here they come with their cell phones and laptops. Soon they'll be faxing and copying, talking and laughing, then cutting, grinding, hammering and welding, and throwing metal everywhere. The problem, it's just too cool. I can't stop myself from admiring all their projects. But I can't. No, my producer won't let me. I've got to make TV. Something about if it's not in picture, it's only radio. Then they talk to me about priorities. At least Brent's back and starting the rest of the flares. All I've got left to do before test firing the engine is plumb the oil system. If you remember, to keep this lower ride height, we converted a dry sump pan to a wet, putting the pump outside the pan. The filters from Peterson are external as well. This scavenge filter will stop the big pieces you hope aren't coming out of your engine. Once the oil comes out of the pump, it goes through this main filter, then back to the engine. Our pump puts out 6.8 gallons per minute at 1,000 RPMs, and it takes a Dash 12 hose to move all that oil. More serious racing engines have additional oil inlets for the lifters, cam, crank, etc. Our pump will allow up to 5 stackable sections to feed those as well. Because of this smaller pan, the dipstick is not accurate. For now, 6 quarts of the King's Purple fluid will get us started. There are several ways to prime a pump. Just make sure you do it. There it goes. Just lug down. A little bit of racing fuel and some standard H2O. All right, if we forgot anything, we'll find out. Keep an eye on the oil pressure. We'll make sure we got something.
You ready?
Hit it. I got gas. Ooh, go ahead. Go again. Go. No oil pressure?
No oil pressure.
All right, kill it. I'm gonna kill the power. We need to figure out what's going on. You had nothing at all?
Nothing.
The most valuable thing I learned from an engine builder: always check the obvious first. We know the pump's working because it made it to here. This was the in, and you can see oil in the top. I'm wondering if we got it on the wrong boss on the engine block. One is for in, the other is for out. Could be I confused the two. With a little internet work and some phone work. Right. And I got it going into the block there, and the other one's plugged off. I still don't have an answer. I could simply switch the two, but I don't want to hurt it. I'll figure this problem out before we put the engine back in the car. That's why we totally assembled everything before we put any paint on it. All the holes are drilled, and short of a few bars and the firewall, the welding is done. Later in the show, I'm gonna start the teardown, and Brent's got some body mods he's just dying to do, so don't go anywhere.
This week's MuscleCar Flashback, the 63.5 Galaxy 427.
Settle back and light up a new Super Torque Ford.
With commercials like this, you might not think performance was a top priority with Ford in '63. Well, think again. I got 2 words for you: 63.5 dual quad 427 Galaxy 4-speed. Yeah, that's right. The rest is just a lot of math. And it all adds up to Ford's formula for taking more than half the checkered flags in the 1963 NASCAR season, followed up by the 30-win season for 64. Over this 2-year span, Galaxies were piloted by racing legends such as Dan Gurney and the gentleman Ned Jarrett. A car with that sort of track record belongs in a museum, and that's exactly where you'll find this one, in Floyd Garrett's MuscleCar Museum in Sevierville, Tennessee. And it's just one of over 90 cars you can see for yourself. With just a little over 38,000 original miles, this racing relic will take you back to a time when these two 4-barrel Hollies ruled the NASCAR circuit on top of this 427 big block and commanded a 425-horse cavalry. A 4-speed transmission puts the reins on all those ponies, and a posse rear keeps them all pulling their fair share of the load. 2 inches closer to the deck than earlier models, these Galaxies kept the weight close to the ground, and a fastback top was introduced mid-year, drastically improving the aerodynamics and Ford's record on the track. These winners on the track were winning looks on the street. Chromed out bumpers, trim, and grille, along with some flashy badging, put a spit shine on that factory red paint job. Body lines that go on for days roll on top of these 15-inch wheels, covered by chrome hubcaps, complete with 3-blade spinners. Fins on the front fenders and 4 horizontal headlights, coupled with these taillights fit for a UFO, and you've got a car that's ready for liftoff. Under the hood, an oval air cleaner hovers over chrome valve covers. As you can see, this is one clean Ford. Inside, the bench seats made room so the whole family could ride along in this red rocket. Sharp controls, stereo, and a console that even NASA would be proud of are topped off by more of that stylish chrome. With less than 5,000 of these 427 Galaxies sold in '63, it's no wonder Floyd doesn't drive it like he stole it. But then again, he doesn't have to. This car has already proven everything it needs to out on the track. Don't go wandering off into space just yet. MuscleCar will be right back. So far, I pulled an all-nighter, finished everything needed to test start the engine, and found out I made a possible error in the plumbing. We won't dwell on that. No oil pressure?
No oil pressure.
However, this life-sucking project is finally ready to be disassembled for bodywork and paint. But Brent can't wait. He has this artistic side that needs to be set free. If you're driving this car like it was designed to be driven, these brakes will be red hot. And there's no passenger looking out this rear window. To keep things cool, Brent's using these ingenious fiberglass ducts. A hose will channel the air down to the caliper. The ducts will hide behind fiberglass scoops made the same way as our flares, using floral foam as a mold. Once glued to the aluminum mounting plate, the foam is contoured to create the sleek shape we want for the finished scoops. A layer of aluminum foil will ensure an easy release once the glass is dry. Prep it with a thin coat of resin, lay on some cloth, then some more resin.
You know what this looks like? A salmon, and I'm basting it.
After a quick trim, a second layer. 2 should be enough for these pieces. They need to be thin enough to flex once we start throwing our Mustang around. While Brent's cooking up something special, I'm gonna start tearing out the engine. Taking stuff apart is a lot faster than putting it together. We're ready to yank this engine out in no time. I got creative and pieced together a man-sized sling, giving us more than enough width so I don't have to take up the valve covers, stacks, or intake. I finally found the answer to my oil pressure problem. I should have put my line in here, not here. I guess that's what happens when you burn the midnight oil. Brent's vents are dry and ready to be transformed. Some work with the cutoff wheel, a snip here, a trim there. The ducts are ready to be glued into place with some fiberglass filler. These will definitely keep things cool. The sequential LED taillights we got from Mustang Project are pretty cool, but they stick out a little too far for our taste. Brent's got another plan. This trick will add one more detail that separates our Mustang from the herd. These are much bigger than the original lights, so some of this metal's gotta go, but it's worth the trouble. Now that's more like it. Brent's got a few more tricks left up his sleeves, but I don't care. I'm happy with what I got done. Now at another point in time, we're gonna finish stripping this thing down and get it ready for paint. Until then, I'm out of here. Later. Oh yeah, you know that guy? We couldn't figure out what he does here? He came to work today.
The next step in setting up your mailbox is to record your name announcement. Please state your name after the tone.
What?
You recorded. What? Please record your personal...
Oh, make the seat wet.
Oh, someone is so not getting paid this week.